the Village of Oregon Code of Ordinance relating to transient merchants. And I should make a note that the first waiving took place at our September 10th board meeting, and this ordinance has been prepared in accordance with the Department of Justice information.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item B.
Item B is discussion and possible action regarding ordinance number 1815. This is an ordinance to amend section 702(9) of the Village of Oregon Code of Ordinances relating to parking regulations. So I'll make this first motion for us to consider, that by a 2/3 vote tonight, we suspend the rules and waive the first and second readings at tonight's meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, do we have to take a vote to get 2/3 before we can take action?
Yeah, we have to do this first. Questions on that?
That was my only question.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. And then my second motion is that we adopt ordinance 1815.
Second that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, there's information in this in the packet. Jeff, did you have some questions? Maybe, or no?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
No, you're good? All right.
Thanks.
Sure.
So this is related to parking, a number of different streets, a lot around the high school, and people who are watching or interested, you can find this online on the Village Board website. So, any questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Item C is Dane County affordable housing efforts. And are we gonna, or is this gonna happen? Are we gonna have a showing of the video?
Yep.
Okay. We are gonna have a showing of the Dane County Housing Initiative video. It's called Minding the Gap, the Housing Crisis in Dane County. And then a discussion of creating affordable workhouse housing in Oregon. And thank you to Trustee Bollig for making us aware of this video.
And this is actually somewhat related to the next agenda item D. So maybe when you're watching it, sort of keep that in mind when you're watching it, please.
We good to go?
There's just not enough to go around. And they have waiting lists, very long waiting lists. You just can't afford anything more expensive, so where do you go?
So the housing gap is the difference between the amount of income that people earn, and therefore the house that they could afford, and the number of units that are available at that price point.
Well, I lived in Middleton first, and that wasn't low income, so that's why I moved. If I was living back where I used to, it would be 3/4 of my Social Security would be for housing. And I wouldn't have enough for food and phone or electric. And it's not like the elderly people that are looking for a home haven't worked through their lives. They're not freeloaders. They have worked, and they just don't have the money now to provide their living. And just look around. When you go to the store or you go out somewhere, look around and see how many elderly there are. It's growing fast, and we got to get ahead of it.
Most low-income households are working households, and they don't earn enough to have a decent quality place to live, where they can raise their family and in a safe and stable neighborhood.
So we've been together 11 years. I work for Jersey Mike Subs in Middleton. I'm an assistant manager.
And I work at American Girl in Middleton, and I've been there 3 years.
We've noticed in the last 20 years that in many places across the country, housing costs have gone up much faster than people's incomes. And that puts pressure on their ability to spend money for other things.
It took us a long time to find some place that was affordable, that was nice. We didn't have a car before we moved here. I mean, everything we did was by cab, by walking, or, you know, trying to get rides from people.
The apartment that we're living in is good, it's affordable. We're able to save a lot of money staying here because they take care of the property. We want to be here. Saved us a lot of money, where we were able to afford daycare for our son. Whoa, did you like that? We were able to afford food. Believe it or not, food's expensive, so we're able to keep food in the refrigerator. We're able to go to work. Here it gives us reassurance that we're good, we're safe, we feel like a family.
We're really talking not just about making stable housing for families, but it helps to strengthen neighborhoods and strengthen our schools and stabilize our employment base.
Having employees that can live closer in to the plant is a big benefit to us. We know there's a gap in the community for affordable housing, so we're working on projects in conjunction with businesses and the city of Sun Prairie to provide affordable workforce housing.
So workforce housing is really housing that is priced to meet the needs of the workforce that you have in an area.
Tight labor market kind of forces us as a company to look outside of our general area, and it's difficult to recruit employees to want to come to work here at our plant and have to have a 40 to 45 minute to an hour commute. I believe if workforce housing is not available, it increases the turnover rate.
For many households who live far away from work, they may feel like they're saving money on their housing, but they're really spending a lot of time and money on gas and on travel. And it means that if their car breaks down, either they have to pay for their car or pay for their rent. So they might lose their job or they might lose their housing. When we have developers building new apartments that are affordable, it creates construction jobs, it creates additional jobs as people spend their money in the community.
The City of Middleton had a workforce housing committee that said we want 295 units of affordable housing over a certain time period. Having that roadmap is key for developers to know what the communities want so that they can bring the projects forward that the community is already asking for. I think the economic impact is huge. You know, we took a vacant bowling alley on 2 acres and built a $16 million project. The city recognizes this increase in taxes while at the same time providing units at this huge range of affordability. Meadow Ridge Middleton has 76 out of 95 units that are affordable, ranging in income levels from 30% to 60% of the area median income. You know, we've got units targeted for veterans, we've got units targeted for people that have disabilities and require supportive services. So, you know, these projects really throw a wide, diverse net for a tenant base, which really creates, I think, personally, a better apartment community. You don't look at this building and say, hey, that's got to be an affordable housing project. I mean, this is as nice as any market rate housing project.
To fix the housing gap, we need a sustained partnership across all sectors. So for employers, that can mean helping their employees to find housing. For cities, it can mean spending money or helping to approve more apartment construction or development of affordable housing. And really, for the banking and financial sector, it means financing and funding these projects.
And this is the best apartment that we've had.
It's like our own private little community where you're getting to know your neighbors so you can actually look out for your neighbors too.
I have a sign that says everyone needs a little place to call home. And I think it's so true. We don't ask for a mansion. We just ask for a little place to live.
Okay, again, thanks to Jerry for bringing that forward. I think we all found that quite informative. Are there any comments? Let's call for some discussion.
I just asked staff if they would mind explaining how affordable housing works and where it would have to be located and how it would be financed in town here.
Yep. So Matt and Mike Slavny came to one of our staff meetings, and we had some members of the Oregon Housing Task Force come to, and we talked about that. And one of the ways we would do this is through in one of our TIF districts. I use increment, and that's why I did it on purpose. I did this before we started talking about the creation of the business park and going to their side of 14. I will freely admit, and I told this to the task force, and Scott Meyer, who's on Planning Commission, is a member of the task force, and we're actually going to show it to the same video to the commission on Thursday night. And members of the task force are going to come to give a presentation. But the challenge of locating multifamily in an established neighborhood is tough. We all know that, right? Sanctuary project, this we went through with Ford Development. And so what I've been proposing and somewhat pushing is that when we cross 14, whenever we do that, and it kind of goes to some of the discussion in the video, that we cite an apartment project or some type of housing over there, affordable housing, and Jerry would be part of a TIF. And we would probably provide incentives to a developer. We have an affordable housing fund of $485,000 that we could use as a down payment, possibly. But it would probably most likely have to happen in a TIF district.
Thanks.
Yep.
It was a very powerful video. That's the second time I've seen it. I saw it at a Dean County board meeting earlier this year, so I thought I'd share it.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry.
So I'm going to keep talking about that lot that we own on Park Street and Janesville Street as a location for a mixed-use commercial residential across from the hotel. Because I really think that that's an ideal spot. It's close to Park Street, which is close to the schools and close to downtown. One of the challenges we're going to have when we get out across Highway 14 is that these very same people who are sort of caught right now between being able to afford a car and afford a home have needs for the infrastructure that the village provides. And as we push them further outside of the village, it becomes more and more difficult for them to access that infrastructure. Something as easy as being able to walk down to Quick Trip would be hugely important to somebody that doesn't have a car. But now if you put them on the other side of 14, walking down to Quick Trip's not an option unless you put a Quick Trip on the other side of 14.
Right.
So it's something to think about.
Yep.
And in that instance, you know, we already own the land.
Yep.
So that's the attraction for a developer as far as our entry into the financing of the project.
I think I should back up here. On this chart that was provided, Dane County is saying that we've got a gap of about 125 to 150 units. So one of the challenges the task force has is that you can do these developments and put in 5 or 6 units. If we're going to really address this gap, we're going to have to do like Middleton did, that type of project at some point. So that's why I'm talking about crossing 14. And Jeff, I agree with you. And my response to that, when some people have raised it as a concern, is that area, if we go that side, will be connected with a bike trail and a walking trail to the rest of the village. And at some point, there'll be quite a bit of businesses over there. I would think probably a gas station, to be very honest with you. Maybe another Quick Trip. We'll have 4 Quick Trips in the village, maybe at some point. And probably additional residential over there. So it's going to be part of the village at some point. But initially, you're right, it will be a little bit different than the rest of the village.
Well, in this kind of initiative, this isn't a one and done.
No.
We need 150 to catch up.
Yep. So
and the way the economy's going, this problem's just going to get bigger as the village grows.
They have been saying that in the paper, yeah.
So I see room for several projects over time.
Yep. Yep.
But a comprehensive plan would be helpful, and would help, not only would it help the village in terms of sitting down with Mike and saying, hey, let's lay out 10 years worth of workforce housing. It would be helpful for developers as well, because a lot of times even the financing for projects like this could take 10 years. When you look at what Phil Sveum's doing off of Highway M with the housing development there, that's 10 years in the making before he broke ground. So we have to be able to project out for the benefit of developers.
I mean, yeah, I get calls from developers asking that very question, where can we locate these? And I'm telling them right now, we really don't have a spot in the village. So, no, that's a good point, Jeff. I agree. Yeah. May I talk about the next item a little bit, Steve?
Yeah.
If we were done with that.
Let me see. Any more on the
ties in what we're talking
workforce
about.
housing? I would say, too, that for people that are watching, if you go to item 4C online in our packet, there's a lot of good information there from the coalition in Oregon led by Karen Victorson that is doing a great job. And I think they're going to end up with a comprehensive plan. I mean, Corinne has done a great job with that. She's a go get it done type of person, and very much cares about people.
It is in the most recent update in the comp plan.
Yeah.
You said that.
So Steve, I'm part of the task force.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was surprised that we learned is even some of our teachers who teach in the village cannot afford to live here. Mm-hmm. And that really sort of brought it all sort of home. And the other thing, we with Karen, we had a meeting. There are developers interested. They're out there.
We just need the land.
Correct.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of things are in motion to make this happen. So, other comments or questions, anyone?
Because we're talking about a Southeast business park, we're talking about a business park also maybe with workforce housing.
Correct.
Does that limit what types of businesses can go in that business park? Because, you wouldn't want residential places right next to certain types of businesses that might be noisy or you know what I mean? They're just like, we should also be thinking about how they might work in tandem as opposed to being, alienating each other if they're going to be in the same area.
We've had that park conceptually laid out for probably a good 15 years, and we're at this point we're projecting that more of the heavy, if I can say it, use would be on the north side of the highway. On the south side would be more of the quick trips and places like that. Okay. I think that's where the housing would go, would be on the south side.
Okay.
Yeah. But that would get worked out in more detail as we go forward.
So do we have land on the north side too, though?
There could be. Mm-hmm.
Could be. Mm-hmm. Okay. But the TIF, well, I know we're going to get to that next, but I think what I saw in the packet was that that we're looking at the south, but it could be extended or another one for the north side.
I should have probably put a map in there. I'm trying to think, do we have a map of the south?
If that'll be explained,
okay.
That's good.
I should have put a map of the Southeast Business Park in there. I don't think we have one on the wall.
Do we currently own any land as a village?
Nope.
East of 14?
Nope.
No.
Mm-hmm. This would be all developers. Yep. So, sorry.
You ready then for item D?
Yep. So like I said, many years ago, we started looking at going to the village actually did this way before I even got here. They did a major study of going the other side of 14 or doing a joint business park with Fitchburg, and we were just about ready to cross 14 back in the mid-2000s, and we decided to do the business park with Lycon. So we've been studying this for years, and there's a lot of detail that's been done by Mike Slavny and Vanderwall over the years. And actually, I will get you a copy of the map. I should have brought that along with me. But the reason why this is on the agenda tonight was I know we have a few new board members, and I didn't want to assume we didn't want to assume that we should go charging ahead to, hire the planner next year on staff, and start budgeting to do the submittal to the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission so we can extend sewer, and, sort of get the area ready. So when we get the developer, like the article I gave you from the Fitchburg Star, that we're ready to go with that type of business to go into the park. And so we would spend most of 19 and even some of 2020 planning to cross the highway, meeting with the property owners, meeting with the town of Rutland, and doing all the preparation work that we'd have to do. But I think, and at some point creating a TIF district most likely. But before we do that, I think I just wanted to make sure that the staff and the village board was on the same page before we did that. It has an impact on the 2019 budget, for example, and so.
Yeah. So I'm going to read just a bit of what's in our agenda that Mike presented toward the end, where it says he thought it would be good to make sure the board is comfortable with including funding in the 2019 budget for the business park efforts, but importantly, the use of TIF as a tool to attract businesses to the future business park. So that's kind of where we need to give some feedback to if we want to proceed that way, because it does affect the budget and the planner. So,
and I should say that back in 2014, 14, I think, or 15, and it's mainly the Sweeney family that owns most of the property over on the other side of 14. There's some other individuals, but they own a great deal of the property. And they hired a consultant who concluded that without village assistance, there's no way that the business park project could start. Somebody has to help pay for the upfronting of the sewer and the water and things like that. So I would anticipate us having to create a new TIF district over there at some point. And that's why I'm mentioning TIF throughout the discussion.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, this was kind of underway with Viridian until the recession hit.
Correct.
And then that kind of slowed everything down. They actually lost the land. So
yeah, Viridian actually used to own the property where Holfer's development is going, and they were going to actually put in a sewer interceptor and go all the way under 14, go all the way down. It's a long run. And then the recession came, and they ended up unfortunately losing the property. And
so this has been before the board, the idea of going across 14 to 138 for a number of years. I mean, I've been here a number of years, and we've looked at it before, and I've felt it's a good way to proceed. Mike Slavny says that at some point will probably be the major entrance to the village, which I think is true with South Prairie Parkway going through now, and the hotel and that type of thing. So Mike's looking for some feedback from other people on the board if we want to proceed with the money in the budget at the present time and proceed with the planner and so on. So your thoughts or questions, please?
So there is no more land available adjacent to our current business park, correct?
Once Ticey buys the land from Lycon, there'll only be like 5 to 8 acres left in the park.
And we can't add on to it.
We could at some point, but at this point, Alpine Dairy is not interested in selling to us. They're interested in holding onto their property. We've approached them numerous times over the last couple of years.
And I just talked to the representative a couple of weeks ago again too. So,
but I will say that that just because we do this part, Jerry, that at some point Alpine Dairy is interested in selling that, we wouldn't go that way as well.
Right.
Because that park would actually provide a different land use in some cases than this park would.
Very good.
We actually, about planning, we actually have what's called a Northwest planning area for that property at some point. It's kind of tied into what Jeff's going to talk about a little bit later on about the bike trail. It's all tied in.
Other thoughts or questions, comments? Are there objections to proceeding as Mike has indicated with money in the budget and with the planner? We all okay with that, it looks like?
Okay. And obviously you'll see this in October in a couple of weeks here about.
So you got what you want.
Yep. Okay. We'll keep moving ahead. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So item E, discussion possible action regarding Stafford Rosenbaum 2019 rates. Recommend motion is to approve continuing to work with Stafford Rosenbaum in 2019 using the new rates. So I need the motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
How much of an increase is this percentage-wise?
So our partner rate went up by $5 an hour in 2 categories of work. One is general municipal services, and the other is, I think, land use. So it was a $5 increase for partners in those 2 categories. Otherwise, there was no change. As you can see, if you look at our 2019 municipal general council rates, that's the different categories that we use when we open files, and then we bill at different rates depending on the type of work. I would say that most of the work we do for the village would fall into either the general municipal category or the land use category.
Okay.
Yep.
And one of the things that is noteworthy about the land use category is that I think the village tries whenever possible to pass those costs through, to have the developers pay for those expenses. I wouldn't say 100% are paid, but certainly on any larger projects they're paid.
Very good, thanks, and thank you for bringing this to us now so that staff can use it in planning, budget planning for 2019.
Any other questions or comments?
It's a question for Mike. What are your concerns about the proposal?
None.
Yeah, I think we've had great performance by the Stafford Rosenbaum attorneys. So. Okay, anything else? So we have the motion to approve The contract with Stafford Rosenbaum for 2019 with a couple new rates. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item F, we will now go to item 10. Well, Matt is here.
Yes, that's the.
And item 10 is report of committees. Item A, Library Board meeting September 2018. So Jeannie, it's back to you.
Alrighty, so this is discussion and possible action regarding the memorandum of understanding, the Village of Oregon Village Board and the Library Board relating to the construction of a new municipal library. So this MOU was approved by the Library Board on September 18th, 2018. So I will go ahead and make this motion. I would make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding with a note that in 2016-17, the general fund advanced $107,188 to help cover the purchase of the former Methodist Church property on Main Street. Upon the approval of this MOU by the Library Board and the Village Board, this advance will be paid back with library impact fees, including interest, for a total of $117,639.82.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Jennifer, do you have any comments?
I just want to say I was very impressed with the planning process that went into preparing this memorandum of understanding. I understand it's been more than a year in the works, and it's very well thought out in terms of all the little details that you have to think about when doing a project. I'm hoping it'll address, all the things that we'll encounter on the way forward. It's possible there could be some surprises or things that fall outside of this, but I think it's a great framework, and I'm hopeful that it'll give us the tools to address anything unplanned as we move forward. I think it really tries to outline the process and does so very, very well for both parties.
Good. Thank you. And I can say that your presence and experience was very helpful in getting us to this point, so we thank you for moving that along in a very consensus type of way. That's well done.
So, Mike, as I understand, when we adopt the MOU for the library, there'll just be an automatic process where the impact fees will be used to pay back this advance.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Where is the advance recorded right now?
It is in this Civic Campus plan, right? Or Civic Campus Fund. Remember, is that what we were looking at today? Lisa? I think it's in the Civic. I think it's in Fund 433, the Civic Campus.
Very good.
Yeah.
She had the weekend off.
That's okay.
We were just talking about today. That's why. That's the reason I know where it is.
Yeah.
Very good.
From the general fund.
Very good.
Any other questions or comments on the MOU? Okay, so seeing none, we have the motion and second for the MOU, the library and the village board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next item, Jeannie.
This is a discussion and possible action regarding the library needs assessment for adjusting the current library impact fee. So I will make the motion that we continue moving forward with increasing the current library impact fee, and with a note that the draft needs assessment will be needed to be finalized by the village attorney. We'll have to follow the process for amending the impact fees as discussed on page 5 of the needs assessment before officially adopting the new fee. And this new fee will be effective the same date the new park impact fees are effective, sometime in early 2019.
So I'll second that.
Thank you. So that motion is to continue moving forward with increasing the current library impact fee. There's a whole bunch of background in that paragraph.
Yeah. This is another thing that we've been talking about for 10 months.
So Matt, do you want to make some comments here? Or?
Sure. Impact fees are not by any stretch the largest component of how the new library will be financed, but it is one piece of the puzzle. We have an impact fee that we're collecting today that is basically out of date with respect to the cost of construction that was used to calculate the fee. I think the fee was adopted, I don't know, quite a few years ago now.
Long time ago.
And the cost of the fee has not been adjusted over many years, even though the cost of constructing a new library has gone up. So this particular first step in increasing the fee would stay with the existing methodology that we're using for the current fee, but it would increase the fee to reflect the fact that it costs more to build a library now than it did when this fee was first established. Once the village moves forward with building a new library, we're going to have another discussion about impact fees that would potentially involve adopting a new fee based on a different methodology based on the cost of the new library when we actually go ahead and construct that. And I'm not going to get into the details on that tonight because it's kind of complicated, but that'll be another discussion we'll have maybe 18 months from now, something like that. So this is just kind of an initial update to the fee so that it makes more sense based on cost of construction. I'll also point out, just in the broader context of impact fees, I know Mike has been working to try and phase this increase in when other fees drop away to try and keep the overall impact fee level that people have to pay as kind of manageable as possible, I suppose, to keep it from spiking. When we look at the new impact fee and then the next increase for the library impact fee, and we start talking about the park impact fee and other impact fees, we're going to have to recognize the relationship between those fees and that's something we talked about earlier tonight, which is affordable housing. Because the more that we add fees to the cost of a building permit, the more that increases the cost of housing. Yeah. And actually, by law now, one of the things we're required to do in our assessments for impact fees is speak to this question of the impact of the fees on affordable housing. And so ultimately, when the board is making these impact fee decisions, on the one hand, you'll be able to look at, legally speaking, can we impose this fee to address this cost? But then you'll also have to look at it from a policy perspective to think about what are the implications of that for affordable housing. And then of course the problem is, if you don't generate the revenue from that fee, where are you going to get the money? Got to get it from somewhere. So it's either going to come from impact fees or it's going to come from a broader tax levy on the village as a whole. And so those policy decisions will have to be considered as you work your way through each of these fee issues. We're not here to vote on anything tonight in terms of an impact fee.
Yeah.
We're not here to vote on approving an impact fee, but if you authorize us to move forward, we'll come back with the first step, which is just bumping up the current library impact fee based on the increase in the cost of construction.
So, real quick question. So the first motion was to increase the current fee. The second was to continue moving forward with increasing.
No, the only motion I made was to continue moving forward.
That's it.
The first motion is from the library board.
Yeah. Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, those impact fees are collected when someone gets a building permit.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Did you want to comment on this, Jennifer?
No, I think Matt did a great job of explaining it. So
I think I'd stay out of it too. Let Matt do it.
Kind of like talking about taxes.
Yeah. Okay, so our motion before us is to continue moving forward with increasing current library impact fee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Steve, before we go back to, can I just say a couple things here?
Yep.
I forgot to tell you why this was in front of you. I had a particular board member ask me to have a
You can mention my name.
Trustee Bollick. Actually, it was a good idea.
I asked for this because even though I've been on the board a long time, I still have trouble remembering which TIF is which.
Yeah, but it's a lot simpler, because right now we only have TIF 5 and TIF 4. TIF 5 is the overlay over TIF 3, so take these with you, and then Jeff was kind enough to print off in the corner of the room there the larger map, and we'll have this on the webpage, so.
This is really nice.
Yeah.
Gotta get our bearings.
Yep. And then, Steve, could we take a 2 minute break, because you and Peggy have to sign a warranty deed that Matt needs to take with him.
Okay.
If you don't mind, please.
So we're going to have a short break here while some things get signed, and then we'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
back live,
Thanks.
folks.
Okay.
So back in order here.
Oh, boy.
We are at item 5, approval of minutes. There are 6 before us, December 18, 2017, January 29, 2018 special meeting, April 16, 2018 joint meeting with Park Board, August 27, 2018 joint meeting with Library Board, September 17, 2018, and September 26, 2018 joint meeting with Town. So we need a motion to cover all those, please.
I'll move those.
Thank you.
You must be caught up now, Mike.
Not even close.
Okay. I have a question.
We need a second. Thank you.
Second, okay. And then question, you know, if I wasn't at some of these, is that acceptable, that I'm just approving the ones where I was present?
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't leave, Matt.
Yeah, didn't we have a system for that?
We did.
We have like a special motion, don't we?
Yeah, but Steve, yeah. I mean, at this point, there's enough board members who were there that Randy and Amanda could abstain.
You could abstain?
Yeah.
We have
All right.
special language we came
do.
up with for.
I had the exact same question when I first got elected.
So we usually have an agenda though, right?
I didn't think it was, I figured there'd be enough people that Randy and Amanda could abstain. And
You're blaming me.
I'm
That
not
works for me.
Well, I could. I
Just
almost
mark
did,
us
didn't
down,
I?
I know, you
guess,
did.
As far as I'm
I heard
concerned.
that.
I did, I almost did that.
Okay, so are you all set,
Steve's fault.
everybody? Okay. So any additions or corrections from those who are at these meetings?
Does it matter that Bill Livick's name was misspelled in one of them?
No.
Not really.
Sorry, Bill.
Then fine.
If you're watching, he probably isn't because Alex is here. Don't tell him, okay? Okay, so we have those 6 sets of minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Randy and Amanda.
Yeah, so-
Okay. Okay, we then go to vouchers. We have vouchers tonight in the amount of $1,305,029.72.
I'll
Move to, oh,
I'll second Jeannie.
okay, yep, I'll move to approve. Jeff
Okay.
seconds.
Are there questions?
I'm gonna ask
You
a
go right
question.
ahead.
What is UB refund? Is that somebody who's got solar, or is it you?
No, it's utility billing.
Refund?
It's like somebody that moved out of our
Okay.
community. And there was an overpayment usually during the closing, and it goes back to the homeowner.
I thought maybe somebody had solar and we had to refund.
No, we don't have that
Okay.
here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Jerry?
Oh, yeah, if you insist, Randy. Badger, and this is for Jeff probably, Badger Contractors Rental, and it says sewer jumping rammer broke.
Sewer, what section are you on?
First page, Jeff.
First page, 513.
Yeah, we bought a new, they call them jumping jacks. It's like it's a compactor that pops up
okay.
and down and
Yep,
everything like this. So our one was very old, and we were using it for all the patching and paving prior to the mill and overlay. And so the 250 is the trade-in of our old broken one, and the 2415 was a brand new one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My second question is vendor 12185 for our patch use service, and I'm not sure who will answer this. And it just I'm just trying to understand what this cost is. It's
What page are you on, Jerry?
Court
Page
use.
9,
Page 9?
Page nine.
towards the bottom.
Yeah,
Oh.
court youth, pure court,
Oh.
$6,000.
Yep.
Can you explain what that is? I'm sure it's a legitimate cost.
It's been in the budget for a couple of years now. Judge Cox uses a service, and that's what it's called. I'd have to get
Service to do what?
It's a diversion
It's a
program,
peer-
isn't
peer
it, for the
court,
court?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't explain it without looking at the agreement again, Jerry. Sorry.
Okay.
I can.
Is that for a whole year?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep. Mhm.
Thank you.
Actually, what I'll do is when her budget comes up, I'll put some information in there so you have
Very
it.
good.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Anyone else have questions? Okay, so we have motion second for vouchers, the amount of $1,305,029.72. Roll call, please.
Boudreaux?
Yes.
Lish?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Jacobson? Yes. Carpenter?
Yes.
Staton?
Yes.
Bollig?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 7 is committee input. Anyone in the audience who would like to address the board tonight? No? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to item 8, proclamations and announcements. Item 8, board comments. I have a statement I'd like to read just to clarify a couple things in the village, so it's out there for people who are watching. This has to do with checking IDs. At least 2 businesses in the village have established a policy of asking for an ID from all patrons who order a drink or purchase alcohol. The rationale is that asking for an ID from all patrons is a policy required by the village board and me. This is not the case. I have not, nor has the village board, ever established this as a requirement or even placed it on an agenda, nor do we intend to do so. Such a policy would also be illegal for the village board to pass. My recommendation has always been to check IDs on anyone who appears to be under 35. I have also suggested that these establishments change their poster to state, in support of the efforts of the Village of Oregon to curb underage drinking, we will check the ID of anyone who appears to be under the age of 35. I have received 2 emails regarding this issue from patrons of a downtown restaurant stating that they were offended by being asked for an ID. They're both told that checking IDs of everyone is a policy of the village board and me. However, I explained to them that if this was the information they received, the person who told them that was being blatantly dishonest. It is not a policy of the village board or me to ask everyone who purchases or orders alcohol to provide an ID. They thanked me for giving them accurate information and said they would no longer patronize the restaurant. So I wanted to get that out so it's clarified for people that are watching or listening or read our packets. I've said other times, sometimes this is kind of like being a middle school principal, so that's kind of what this reminds me of. So I don't have any comments or not on that. It's not necessary, but go ahead.
It's not really, it's just a question, really. If someone is asked for an ID at an establishment, regardless of how old they look, it is state law that they have to provide it, correct?
I don't know if I would assume it is.
I mean, I would
think.
think.
Because the business can choose not to serve them.
Right, okay.
They don't have an ID, no matter what their age is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and they don't have to provide the ID, but if they don't provide the ID, then the business shouldn't be served.
Yeah, that's more what I meant.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Any other, Chief, any comments? Or?
No, I think that's well said. It obviously backfired against those businesses if the patrons aren't going to go there anymore. So
that was an ironic part of it. They said, I'm not going back there if that's where they're going to be. So, so be it. So I hope this filters back to them. Okay, any other board comments? Okay, item B, staff comments. Rachel at the Senior Center, please.
Yes, I wanted to offer some recognition to some village residents who have won some awards lately. Ziggy's Barbecue Smokehouse and Ice Cream Parlor owners, Terry and Mike Ziegelmeyer, were given ACE Awards, which stands for Achievement and Commitment to Excellence, at the 2018 Wisconsin Aging and Disability Network Conference in mid-September. They were recognized for the efforts they've put into the My Meal, My Way program. That's a statewide award. That's pretty cool. They share that with the other Dane County providers of My Meal, My Way meals. So shout out to them. They're doing a great job, and they and their staff deserve congratulations for that. And the other one is Oregon resident Wayne Weezy, who has been named AARP Wisconsin's Volunteer of the Year, the highest award that they make each year in Wisconsin. It's the Andrus Award for Community Service. Wayne is very actively involved in a driver safety program that helps keep senior drivers safer on the roads, which benefits every single person who's out there using the roads. So congratulations to him. He's a very dedicated volunteer for AARP Wisconsin. And a thank you to him, as he has decided that the $1,000 gift that comes along with that award that he can designate to go to whichever organization he would like it to go to will go to the Oregon Area Council on Aging, which is the Senior Centers Advisory Board. So thank you to Wayne, and congratulations.
Good, thanks, Rachel. Item 2, their upcoming October board budget meetings. We've had those several times.
I just want to make sure the difference this year is that the dinners will start at 4:30 and then the meeting will begin at 5. So
thank you.
Plan accordingly, please.
Any other comments from any staff over here right now? Okay. We will go to item 9, communication and miscellaneous business. Discussion and possible action regarding consideration of the implementation schedule for 2018 market wage adjustments. There's background information. So you're going to go through that, Mike?
Sure.
Plan?
This has been at the personnel committee once, if not twice, and then it came to the board for a little direction. And then the board gave us some direction on how to implement it. You know, we were going to do it over 3 years, and now this is over 2 years, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So the first bullet point was that if this schedule is adopted, it would bring the identified positions on this schedule to the average level when compared to the village's comparable communities, which is something we've always had been in that position in the past. The board budgeted funding in 2017 and 2018 to provide market wage adjustments after conducting a wage survey with comparable communities. The committee and the village board directed staff to implement the larger wage adjustment over 2 years rather than 3 years. And it was determined as a result of budgeting for the adjustments over 2 budget cycles that we were able to provide the adjustments in 18 over the remaining pay periods. There's 6 left in 18, and include the adjusted base wages in the 19 budget, excluding my at this point, because that has to be done separately. As I note in the next bullet point, the adjustment for my position should be addressed separately by the board. So the first motion would be to approve this schedule, excluding my position at this point.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. As Mike said, this has been looked at before, so it's not the first time through. But are there any questions or comments?
I just have one question. What is the budget impact of this?
For in 18?
Yeah.
$13,456.
And has that been budgeted for?
So we budgeted $30,000. We budgeted I forgot how we did it. Or we carried money for in 17 and 18 we budgeted money.
So yes.
Yeah, so it's budgeted.
It's in the budget.
Yeah. Altogether $30,000.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay, so we have the motion second to approve the implementation schedule for 2018 market wage adjustments effective 10/7/18, excluding village administrative position. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our second motion is to consider the village administrator's wage adjustment. If we want, we are noticed in the agenda to go to closed session, so we can either proceed or have a motion for closed session.
I'm going to make a motion that we consider that an open session. I think the administrator deserves to have a similar wage adjustment.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And I would agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. We get great leadership from all of our department heads, and Mike is the top of that list, I guess.
Thank you.
We separated this out several years ago, so it doesn't look like Mike is putting together a package with including him, because we can consider it differently like we have. But I appreciate the heads nodding support for that, because I think it's well deserved. So, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, so I motion second to approve the village administrator's wage adjustment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Item B, discussion possible board direction review of preliminary 2019 annual budget and tax levy adjustment.
So Lisa and I, with the help of the department heads, have been working on the budget for next year, and
this is hard to see.
we put together this is this preliminary levy sheet at this point. We do this every year for the board. We have it at a little early in the budget process. You'll have one in the packet on Friday for when you get your budget, and then there'll be one for the public hearing for November 12th. And we just try to show the board and the village residents the impact on an average house, and that's actually at the bottom of the page there. So sort of try to look at this. Lisa, jump in if I forget something here. So we try to show you where the levy is going into these special funds, or into these different funds. The first one is the major one, which is a general fund. There's what's called the sick leave conversion fund. The library, is noted on here, was pulled out of the general fund back in 17, now has its own fund. There's money going into TID 5, TID 3 debt service fund, which is the loan that was taken out to do the construction in the downtown back in 2008. And then just general debt service, and then the TIF 4 debt service fund, which is for the TIF that's where the hotel is being built. So at this point, we have a levy going up about 8%, with the mill rate going up a little over 2%. And before I maybe go through some of the reasons why that's happening. You can see that what Lisa does is she calls the assessor, and we ask them, the assessor, what is the average value of a house, and then we take that increase and try to show what the increase would be for an average house. Now the chances that there's going to be somebody in the village that has exactly those values is probably unlikely. So then we always use some other examples of real property in the village to show the other potential increases. This $110 increase is a little bit higher than we've had in the past, and one of the things that Lisa and I are doing is we're going to have a call this week with Dawn, our financial advisor from Elders, who's now the new Jim Mann. Jim Mann actually moved out to Colorado working for Elders. And some board members may remember that last year we were working with Jim trying to figure out the impact of borrowing for the library. So we're going to take some of that information and see where we sit now with this proposed 19 budget. Because one of the things that Jim talked about was we had to start adjusting the levy up a little bit so that whenever we borrowed the $6 million, or actually probably more than that, for the library per the MOU, we don't want to have a humongous spike of the taxes. And so I think this is one way of starting to feather in some of the levy increases, so when we borrow for the library that we don't have this large spike in taxes. Besides needing the levy to do things, but there is another reason why we're doing that. And so some of the reasons why the levy at this point is going up, Lisa and I listed on here, we have the line notice that we were not getting charged correctly, so they corrected their accounting, and now that's almost a $30,000 increase in 19 and that's what we pay for street lights in the village. This is the second year of the police union wage adjustments. The new patrol officer that was added to this department is the whole year is hitting in 19, and there was some increases in hours for the police secretary position. The share of the fire and EMS budget's going up. At this point, we have a 2.5% cost of living adjustment in the budget. The full impact of the wage market adjustments that the board just approved will hit in 19. There is a little bit of offset of some of the money we're carrying forward, but it's still going to hit the levy. And then general legal and prosecution legal costs continue to increase. And we are going to actually begin to work on recodifying chapters 1 and 2 in the code next year. We need to start working on that, right, Peggy? Yes. Yeah. And then we finally we'll have our front office will be fully staffed for the first time in probably 2 years. I mean, it's so that all these things are hitting at one time. We're talking about adding a new staff planner, which will hit the impact. Will have an impact on the levy, and then we're having to have levy to cover TID 5 costs. We hope at some point that the TID 5 will have some development in it, so we're not having to add general levy to it. But at this point, for next year, we're going to have to cover it with general levy. And then debt service is increasing because we're borrowing for new projects, but some of the old debt fell off, and some of the old debt had impact fees to cover that debt service. Well, now we've added new debt, but that new debt does not have impact fees, so that's also raising the levy. And then the last point I wanted to bring up is that at this point, we do not think the 19 budget's going to qualify for what's called the expenditure restraint program through the state. This is where the state rewards you for keeping your expenditures under a certain level, and we'll talk about that a lot more at our first budget meeting. But at some point, this is very common for a growing community that you find yourself not qualifying for a year, and then you qualify for 3 or 4 years, and you don't qualify. It sort of goes into a cycle. We did have a pretty good net new construction. That's at the bottom of the page. It was $133,000. And with TID 2 closing, we were able to also add $53,000. So that actually helped to keep the levy down going into 19. So that's kind of a quick overview where the budget stands right now.
Quick question.
Yeah.
And I think I had a discussion with Mike last week, and I'm just going to touch on this for the public information. This projection, or a preliminary budget, I should say, has some estimates in it, right?
Right. And the big number we don't have right now is road aid from the the state, thank you, Jerry, for bringing it, I forgot about that. I think it, I think it increased, what, $20,000 or so. It was a pretty significant increase from 18 to 19. And everything I'm hearing that we should get a good number, but at this point, we're holding that number flat. And so there's some things that could come in that will, I can guarantee you, this 110 will not be 110 when you adopt the budget. It could be up or it could be down. Hopefully it'll be a little bit lower than that. But we are going through some, you know, some growing pains here, adding staff, and it's hitting the budget in 19.
Thanks for that summary.
Yep.
Anything you wanted to add, Lisa? Okay. So any questions or comments here? We'll be at that full speed ahead next week. So.
Yeah, you know, my only comment is you're either growing or dying as a community. So I'm excited to see that we're growing, and this translates into increased property values and ultimately personal wealth for our residents. So congratulations to the village.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, it's a good position to be in.
So Saturday morning or Friday afternoon, you can come down and grab your budget books and read them over the weekend if you want.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Jerry?
Well, I thought I could get it early.
I'll try.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go to 9C, discussion of Rotary bike trail flooding issues and the village staff's response to flooding and possible board action. Jeff's going to show a video, and then I will read the motion when that's done. So.
Yeah. Two videos.
So Jenna, we are going to get another TV, just so you know. No, seriously, we're going to do that, so you know.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So, you know, we're continuing.
Sorry.
Want popcorn for this? Yes. So, as you know, I mean, we've had our trail flooded the entire year since actually in the winter. A resident did supply me with a picture of where it was actually flooded over the winter, and they broke through in the ice when they were trying to walk on it and stuff. You know, this has been kind of a very frustrating thing because we really thought, well, let's look and watch it through the summer and see if it goes down. And it has not gone down. Whenever it does go down a little bit, it seems to come right back up even higher than it was before. I think it's, you know, as you'll see in kind of this analysis and presentation, is you'll see that we are dealing with a very large, we call it a kettle. Basically, all the water flows to it, nothing flows out of it. It's just a big basin. And so the only thing we're left with getting rid of the water is through infiltration. I think we're at the groundwater table, so I think infiltration is probably zero at this location. It's either that evaporation, which, as you know, we did not have a very hot summer and a very evaporative summer, or evapotranspiration, which is just the uptake of water with plants and conversion of that and everything. So we're kind of left with what we have right here. And as I kind of cycle through a few pictures, you can see the bike path, and you can see this is part of the flooded section over here. This was a drone flight that I'd like to thank Joe from our Oregon Area Fire EMS is kind of a drone pilot, or he is a drone pilot, and he agreed to go out there with us and videotape this just so we can kind of get an idea of the scale of what we're looking at. We have about 600 linear feet of our path that are underwater right now. And you can see as I'm kind of dragging the arrow through here, this is the deepest section right now. At its deepest point, it was probably about 18 inches deep at that location. You can see here's the truck where we were out here flying the drone. So as this is looking eastwards, this is the Jenkins farm right here. This is Netherwood Road along here, and this is the what do you call it? What's that property over there? The prison property.
DOC.
Yeah. Department of Corrections property over here. This is actually Lake Barney, if you know about Lake Barney. But Lake Barney has become Lake Oregon here, and taking up just a huge amount of area over here. Later, when I talk about an overland flow route, you can see it starting to kind of work its way through over here. Eventually, it kind of goes along this path and then into Keller Alpine Park area over there. This is kind of looking east, northeast, again with Lake Barney in the distance. And then as we start to kind of pan around, this is actually looking almost directly north, and with County Highway M, which is almost right at the location of the northern end of this pond. You can see in the lower half, this is our bike path cutting through the woods right over here. So you can just see the extent of really what we're dealing with here, and the amount of water what we have out there. Let's see if we get any other better pictures. A picture you'll see later. Whoops, sorry, I was going to zoom in on this, but when I went out there on Thursday, we're actually now having cattails islands that are out there that have actually floated free from other portions in the marsh, and they're now floating over the top of our bike path. And so there's actually portions where we actually have cattails growing on top of the bike path again. So I'll show you a quick video here that just gives you kind of a panoramic view of this. Okay.
That's so much water's out there. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So it just keeps going and going and going. So I know, we've looked at several different alternatives. I think what we've seen this year, I personally, we've looked at some historical photographs. We've never seen, in any of the historical photographs, we've never seen this amount of water out there. And when I talk about historical photographs, I'm able to go back on Google Earth and actually look at photographs from early 80s, mid 80s, all the way through, even through some of our flood years, which was like 2007, 2008. You can see it increase. There's other times where you don't even see a speck of water out here. So that shows you kind of how much this does change. I said right now we have about 600 linear feet of path that is underwater. I'm going to go to an exhibit here. And what I did this last week was take a look at, how high can this get? If this isn't going down, and we've already shown that it's not going down this year, using the topographic information I have through the county, how high can it get, and is it going to start affecting other parts of our path? And now, mind you, this is a little rough because I'm using kind of 2-foot contours from the county. I'm also using old construction drawings from on the path, but they're only 3 years old, and they all should be on the same datum. But what I've been able to show is that this kettle will continue to get larger and larger, eventually getting all the way over to, they call this Swan Pond here off of Fish Hatchery Road. It gets higher and higher till eventually it fills this little field. And this is a corner of our bike path right here after you go over a kind of little hill out in the country, and then you go down, and there's an actual overland flow route, and about the high point of this overland flow route is right where my cursor is right there. Okay, and that's right about elevation 948 is what I call it out there. So once it reaches that point, then it's going to start to overflow, and it'd be really slow. We're not talking about Dell's Dam kind of video footage here of houses falling in, and everything like that, but it will eventually then work its way down through. There's a little kettle pond right over here that's beyond this. What's the name of that subdivision over there?
I can't remember the name. It's out in the town of Oregon.
Town of Oregon subdivision. Yeah. But then this is through the
Alpine Dairy Farm
and everything like that. You can see it kind of goes down almost to Cusick Parkway. And some of the Alpine Dairy goes into this area here. But basically, the overland flow route is eventually into here, which is eventually into all the area that we're talking about, like Lerner Park and everything like that. But it has to get up there, but we're only probably about 8 inches to a foot, depending on 8 inches to a foot and a half of where it would start to overflow. Okay, so it's getting up there. When I estimate that to be at that elevation, we would have these little red areas here probably underwater. Now, these other areas here would be very shallow underwater, but my fear is I don't want to just go out and put a Band-Aid on one area, and then a year from now, as it continues to rise, if it does, we're talking about other areas that are underwater. And so, I estimated that at 948, we probably have about 2,500 linear feet of path underwater. This happens. There's all sorts of places in Madison that have been dealing with this as well. I've ridden most of the trails around, and it's not uncommon sometimes in the spring to have water over the trail in certain locations. But you go back a week later or 5 days later, and it's gone. You know, it's just trails kind of end up in the lowland areas to begin with. This is just a different type of condition. I actually spoke with the previous public works director, and he said that, you know, he acknowledged that, yes, they knew that there were portions of the trail that would probably flood periodically. They did not envision that it would not recede. And so knowing, you know, about the route that they had and everything like that, and that was confirmed when I talked to the engineer as well. So I guess, you know, we're looking at kind of a plan of attack. What do we do? This is kind of the extent of where it is now, actually, in the 4 flooded areas that we have right now. But the question is what do we do? And, you know, with looking at things, we didn't have the exhibit. No, okay. You know, what we're currently looking at is how do we address the area that we have right now? And because we're going to have to fix it. And our thought process is kind of a multi-stepped plan. First is, you know, Steve, we've been working with Steve on this, and the suggestion is that Steve would talk to the landowners and the representatives of the landowners about possibly either acquiring additional easement or land to be able to raise this portion of the path clearly out of the water level area. And that could be possibly through this kind of through this area here, along here, and possibly into here. And that, you know, we've looked at some costs for that. That could be anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 is an estimate right now. We've looked at boardwalk options. Boardwalk options can range almost up to $1,000 a linear foot. And if we have 1,000 feet of that, that's $1 million. And so a boardwalk option we think is off the table from that standpoint. And if we have to raise the path to the height of what we need to within the easement, we might be challenged in our 20-foot easement of where we're in right now. So the plan would be to have Steve talk to the landowner and first of all see if there's that better option, which is just to move it up and out of the way. If that's the case, then we would look at an alternatives analysis where we would then hire likely Rupert Milkey, who's done the survey out there, to give us kind of an alternatives analysis and a routing analysis to make sure that we're kind of putting this in a good location. And then if that works, then we could hopefully implement a construction plan for 2019 that would get our path back open and operating. And then I said, looking beyond that, we would have to evaluate possibly looking at other areas of the path that we would have to, beyond 2019. I think the important thing right now is, you know, even if water level did get up to this 948 plus or minus elevation, the flooding would be very minor. It's something that someone can step around, or, you know, we're not talking 18 to 20 inches deep over the path. This would take care of the majority of problems and probably not require us to close the path if it got, you know, terribly high. But I think we need to look at long-term fixing the path so that it's functional, rain or shine. So that's kind of what we wanted to share with you. We are working on it. I know the public can get frustrated. I'm frustrated about it too. It's not an easy solution. It's not a cheap solution. But you know, we're fighting. Honestly, if this is our worst problem with flooding, you know, as a community, we're doing pretty well. I think the communities of Mazomanie, Cross Plains, and Black Earth would love to have this kind of problem versus having to completely replace bridges, roadways, and infrastructure. But we do have this, and you know, we want to look at possible grant opportunities. You know, there are some flooding grants out there. I'm not sure if this would qualify. We have our engineers looking into that. I know Randy's expressed interest in working with us on helping with the grant program writing and everything with that. But we want to move forward. We want the support. I guess I would ask for the support of the board moving forward, that this is a very important piece of our village. It's an exceptional path. If you've not had a chance to go through the whole length of it, I invite you to sometime, maybe when it's a little drier. But you can still get 2 miles out there before you have to turn around. But I'd love to see this open again so we can start getting some of the bicycle commuters. I know I've talked to business owners, and they've indicated that they've seen a decreased amount of bike traffic in town just since it has been flooded this year. So open for any questions or suggestions or
Good.
thoughts.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Very thorough, helpful. Randy.
So, first thing, Jeff, I appreciated your memo and all the options. I agree with you. I think we have to look at a permanent solution for this. And I just want to reiterate that I'm certainly, any way that I can help as a grant writer, I think there probably, hopefully there is money. I want to give my services to the village to help.
Good.
With the
Thank
money.
you.
Thank you.
Funds.
Thanks, Randy.
Grants.
And, before I forget, I'll mention too, I have talked to the property owner. I started that process, so we're working on that. I've got some maps from Jeff, such as these, to get to her and then talk about that. So we'll see how that goes too. Jerry.
Oh, yes. Jeff, who designed the current route?
As Veer Becker. Well, the route that Veer Becker did the design drawings. As I understand it, the route was kind of a combination of Public Works at that time, as well as working with another engineering firm, and also landowners in trying to minimize impact. It was kind of, as I was told, that with the design of it, the alignment had already been established.
I guess what I'm trying to arrive at, is there any liability on behalf of any of the professionals that we paid to be involved in this?
Right. I've given that a lot of thought, and maybe, but
because we just did, we just got, what's this been in operation about a year?
3 years.
It's been 3 years.
3 years.
3 years, yeah. That I did for expecting this question. I did talk to the engineer from Veer Becker on Thursday or Friday last week, and of course they were a little, once they knew why I was calling, a little nervous and everything like this. And I just said, well, I just want to kind of know the thought process. And the way it was put to me is that when they were brought in to do the design, the alignment and the easements had already been established. Okay, so as an engineer, you're working within already existing what you have. And so, I think their point was we put it as high as we could in the locations within the easements that we had.
So the parts that are flooded are in the far outside regions of the property that we had available, right?
It's only 20 feet wide, so obviously it forced it to the upper side of that easement and everything. But
okay.
I mean, I've been in these situations where you are confined. Hindsight's 20/20 on this type of situation, but I'm not going to speak for Mark or anyone of the design team that did that, but as an engineer, I would have looked at it as well and said, okay, let's look at historical photographs. Let's look at the vegetation out there. And one of the things I thought was kind of interesting in the vegetation and some of these pictures you see. Let me see if I can get back here. You actually, as you start to see an inundated area, you start to see the vegetation die along the sides. And you can see it mostly on this photograph here, where you start to get, when something's been saturated, normal vegetation that would be there starts to die because it's waterlogged, it's submerged. And so we're starting to see that along here. And so I think, looking at things again and looking at some of these photographs, and I couldn't get them because I'm still having difficulty getting this program to work on my machine, but I pulled them up on another machine. The historical photographs, I mean, there's sometimes it's out there, it's dry, it's a desert, and then other times there's ponds. I'll show you on so this is the same area we're looking at. You can kind of see the vegetation here, but in most years, this is all this dark, this light brown kind of area. This is actually one of the wetter photos that you can see, and how high.
That's Lake Barney right there. That small thing up there. Yeah.
I wonder if it's Lake Barney because it looks like Barney. I mean, I just. But.
You got the 2 legs and the little short arms.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll color it purple one of these days. But you know, it's a good question, Jerry. I'm not an attorney, and I don't know if Matt would have an opinion on that. I think Matt would probably say that might be a difficult
At some
thing
point,
to prove.
I would think we'd want to put them on notice that we're considering it.
We've well, I mean, I think my call to them was kind of a notice of sort to let them know we're talking, you know, to them about it. But yeah.
Okay. I understand your situation, and I'm not saying there's some action necessary.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's something to put on the shelf for now and possibly use in the
Sure.
future.
Absolutely.
Amanda.
So my concern would be with winter coming, that's going to freeze.
Yes.
What is that likely to do to the pavement of the path?
Nothing. I mean, it'll. There's really nothing really we can do for it.
Okay.
Last year it was underwater. Like I said, someone called and kind of said, well, your memo's wrong. It said it's, you know, the path is flooded because of the rains we've had in the last couple of weeks. And I kind of had to correct this person and say, well, I may have said that in the memo, but what I mean is the flooding just continues to get worse and worse. I mean, it's from the snow melt, it's from the rain, everything like this. And they showed me a picture of it being flooded this last spring, and they were walking across it and broke through, you know, the ice, and it was only, what, 6 or 8 inches deep. But so it shouldn't affect things that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'd be open for winter use then, once it freezes.
Well, the duck hunters are already using it.
Ice changes.
Yeah, to get at the ducks.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably continue to have the signage out there indefinitely until, you know, until we have a solution out there.
You know, I was out there about 20 years ago, and I started Highway M, and I walked all the way almost to where the trail is along the west side of the Fish and Wildlife property. It was completely dry. I mean, there was no mud, there was no water, there was nothing. You look at it now, it's at the Great Lakes. There's water all over the place. So, yeah.
This is for Jerry. Jerry, do you know, is there any potential funds in Dane County that you know of?
None that I know of.
So Priest had a press conference last week, and in the paper, I think of the 19 million, he's put it aside. $1 million of that's going to be for bike trail repair.
Okay.
But as I mentioned to you in the email, Randy, it depends on the guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's money, we will definitely apply for it if we're eligible. Yep.
And it may be difficult. Some of that may be slated for
Yep.
Pheasant Branch. Obviously, is
Got
much
hit
more
hard.
dramatic and,
Yeah.
and that type of thing.
Yeah,
So I don't know if it's earmarked.
What I see at Pheasant Branch, you take $1 million alone just for that project.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The Rotary did such an amazing job fundraising for the original bike trail. We reached out to them for possibly a partnership or whatever.
Yes, we're talking to him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay, so we have the recommended motion, which is to approve the plan for the Rotary Bike Path flooding as set forth in Jeff's memo dated September 28, 2018. Approval of any future task orders infringing will be brought before the village board at future meetings. So we need that motion, please.
I'll move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments?
No, I
Yeah.
assume any expenditures will come back to this group before we
Oh, yeah.
authorize them. Okay.
Life is 20% what happens to you and 80% what you do about it. So, you know, the fact that we've addressed the issue, that we're working on fixing it, I mean, that's the most anybody could hope for.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Jeff for doing this, the map he had up there that showed the 948 elevation, because one of the things that he and I have been talking about is we don't want to do a fix and go, oh shoot, maybe we should have raised the path higher. I mean, I know this has to be, you know, finalized, but it gives me some comfort that if we do something, we'll fix it and it'll be permanent.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I've been working with Jeff, with the property owner, and I appreciate what he's done, and also just in general, you brought a lot to us as far as the technology. It's been a nice help and coordinating, so we appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah. I do reach my gavel once in a while, but not always.
As long as you don't throw it, we're okay.
I wouldn't want to hit the chief. Okay, anything else on this item?
No, not yet.
Okay, so all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We'll now go on to item D. Thank you to the following individuals for maintaining the downtown flowers this summer. Gary Dish, Donna Dish, Lynn Johnson, Marty Berman, and Eileen Durkin. They do a great job. I can remember going back to when we redeveloped the downtown and the big flower pots were on the docket, and my comment was, if we're going to have them, we have to take care of them. It does not look good in the community to have flower baskets, flower, whatever, and have them not taken care of. And those folks have done a great job for a long time.
And like we've done in the past, we're giving them a gift card for a local restaurant to eat at.
Yeah. So we announce that way.
I mean, how many times I've seen Gary and Donna out there on the weekend on the roundabout, going to Madison. There they are working their butts off.
Yeah. Yeah.
We cannot thank them enough. I just, as a sounding board, I get several phone calls through the summer, about probably 1 to 2, 3 phone calls a week of someone complimenting, or an email complimenting them. And I always pass them on to Gary to pass them on to them, but I think it's important that we recognize that it's well beyond a service, a normal level of service that we would see.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm hopeful Alex can find a little spot in the paper to acknowledge them too. It'd be nice if that works out. So thank you for considering
Front page
that.
center is fine.
Put up a right-hand corner, a little box would be good. And item E, thank you to Kermit Traska for his service as a treasurer secretary for cable TV. Do you want to make any comments here, Jeff? I know you're on that group.
Well, I've been on that group now for about 5 years, and you know, Kermit's the entire 5 years, Kermit has really been a steady force, helping us to better understand our financial situation.
Absolutely.
Kermit was instrumental in helping us get to the point where we are now, where we're able to proactively approach the village and talk about the partnership. And I think in many ways, we're much more fiscally sound and responsible today than we were 5 years ago because of Kermit. So there's other people that could talk about what Kermit's done for the 25 years before that. I'm not one of them, but I can say everybody I've talked to has had high praise for Kermit.
Yeah, and I've worked with him since I've been on the board. He's done a great job. So thank you, Kermit. We appreciate it. Okay, item F, press release Tuesday, October 9th, 2018 at 2 p.m. Elvin Kellstrom Park dedication over by Wisco on the northwest side of town. That's very nice.
Yeah, we're excited about that. That's, if you've driven by it, it's,
yeah.
It's looking really nice. The columns turned out really nice, and hopefully we'll have some good weather after a week of rain, but that'll be fun. Fun for the,
yeah.
I've spoken to the family members, and they're excited to see it come together.
Okay. So item G, discussion possible action, stop the bleed kits and program implementation. The recommended motion is to approve Public Works to proceed with the procurement and installation of Stop the Bleed kits and necessary cabinets for village facilities and public works vehicles with an approximate material cost of $4,400. Funding to be from the insurance premium refund received by the village. Need a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I hate to have to bring this before you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Writing this memo was like, I can't believe I'm to the day where we have to write this, but one of the things we had excellent as a staff, and everybody on the village board went through the training. I think it was what showed is that our fire department has done an exceptional job in putting together affordable kits that we can place in the buildings. If in the event something happens, honestly, it's a very small cost to save lives. So we would like to implement these in our buildings. I personally want to put a kit in every one of our public works vehicles because there's probably more chance, I mean, of an accident or an injury with a piece of equipment. So that's why I've added that to the vehicles, not for that. So
okay.
It's a good investment for us.
I would just mention that I wouldn't see this as a one and done. I would consider that this might be an ongoing budget issue. And you're going to want to keep track of where all these kits are and that the kits don't move, and you're going to want to go through and rotate out that stock on some sort of periodic basis.
Yeah, they do make them. I did talk to Tony about this. Antonuits, right? Antonuits. Oh, I got it all so close. I got a lesson last week on how to pronounce it, but I did. Huh? A to Z.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
I talked to Tony, and he said they've made a special effort with, especially these are the same kits going in the schools where there's non-expiring things in the kits, so that we can reduce that ongoing cost a little bit. But you're exactly right, Jeff. There'll be bandages and stuff that we have to change out.
Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to say I went to this training as well. I think it was the episode that Jeff was at, and I really like that we're putting these in all the buildings, and I really like that you had the idea to put them in each one of the vehicles because as you said, they're for more than just the active threat issue that we were training for, and I think it's a great way to care for the staff.
Yep.
Like that.
Okay, thanks, John. Anything else? So we have the motion and second to approve purchase of the Stop the Bleed kits and program implementation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item H, for information only, the food pantry update. They've added a morning shift to its monthly distribution schedule on the last Thursday of each month, and they're going to add a second day during this month and a second Tuesday of the month, and they'll be open twice when that happens also. And they've also have an increase in families from about 100 per month to 130 since that opened. So
Yeah.
does that catch everything?
Yes, yes, thank you.
So can I just say that
You can.
this is why we built that building.
Yeah.
Love to see this.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly
And
what
even more.
needed to happen, so it's good. Okay, item I, FYI, on Thursday, November 15th, 2018, the Village Hall will be closed for the day, as in the past, to allow staff time to clean and address outstanding filing and tasks that need to get done that they're hard to do when there's people here all the time.
And that is the day of our annual employee luncheon too, so we thought we'd just close and sort of do it all one day.
Good. Another FYI, Saturday, October 20th, 2018, the former Waterfall Motel will be burned, weather permitting, by the fire department.
Bring your marshmallows.
Okay, we did item 10 on the library board.
And a really long stick.
And we come back to item B, Special Personnel, Public Safety and Protection Committee meeting, September 26, 2018. Jeannie, back to you.
Yeah, from that meeting, the applicant attended that meeting and was agreeable to our suggestion that she reapply in 6 months. So I would make a motion that we deny the operator's license to Heather L. Halverson.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 10, minutes not requiring action. We have from the library board meeting on August 8th, 2018. Item 12, unfinished business. There is none. Item 13, new business. Item A, the approval of pending new operator licenses as recommended by the police department. The Stop and Go, Maury A. Murdoch and Megan R. Pizzolt.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item B, approval of pending renewal operator licenses as recommended by the police department. At Mahans Liquor, David A. Roush.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. There's some future agenda items listed. We don't need item 15. So item 17, a motion for adjournment, please.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
So that was the fastest one we passed.